All right. I will read our introduction and then we can get started. All right. All right. Welcome to the September 2024 Design Review Committee meeting. I'm going to call the roll to confirm that our DRC members are present. Omari Davis.
Here.
Robert Dudka. Not here yet. Okay. Alex Foster. Here. And Andrew Wenchel.
Here.
DRC meetings are held in person and streamed simultaneously to allow commissioners, applicants, and the public to attend online. For members of the board and applicants joining us this evening, if board members or applicants lose internet connectivity during today's meeting, please reconnect with us via the dial-in phone option. Applicants, please keep your devices muted and your video turned off until your item is under review. When called upon to speak, you must unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon that is located on your meeting command bar. The command bar will reappear if you move your cursor down toward the bottom of your screen. We do not have the ability to unmute you. If you are dialing in by phone, press *6 to unmute. The meeting chat is active for participants who need technical assistance and should not be used for questions. The public may observe the meetings, but participation in the discussion is limited to applicants and members of the HALRB during this meeting. Public comment is welcome at the HALRB meeting. Information about signing up as a speaker or submitting a public comment for that meeting is available on the HALRB website. Lastly, this is a public forum. Today's meeting will be recorded and posted to the county website. All information associated with today's meeting, whether written or spoken, is subject to the Freedom of Information Act requirements. And with that, we will move on to our first item on the agenda. I just need to share my screen. Okay, so first we have a project in Maywood, and this is located at 2211 North Kenmore Street, and we have Edith, who's here at the table with us. This is our applicant. And Edith is applying to make two changes to her house. The first is, out a little bit, the front entryway. Let me actually get to the photos. So this is her current entryway at her house, and Edith has one of the non-contributing houses in Maywood. And she's applying to change the front entrance to this is the drawing with the measurements on it. So the measurements are all staying the same. It's just that the door material is changing. So right now it is currently wood, but she's proposing to use a steel door. And then the side lights are no longer going to have muntins. They're going to just be solid. And then same thing for the picture window up at the top. They're divided right now, but it's just going to be a full picture window is what she is proposing. And then I'll go about some details here. It's also going to have a storm door over top of it. So that's what it looks like currently, and that's theoretically what it would look like with these changes. So that's the first part. The second part is the back door. She just wants to replace her current wood door with a steel door, and it would be solid. There would be no half glazing or anything like that, and it would also have a storm door. Questions, comments? Edith, is there anything you'd like to add?
The only other changes in appearance, which are obvious there, but you didn't mention, is that there's presently a sort of fan-shaped decorative little window, and that will be gone from the proposed. And in terms visually, the amount of material in between the top of the door and the glass is going to be thicker by approximately 6 inches thicker than it is now.
Okay.
Because of yes, because it's 2 inches of frame, 3 inches of mull, and then 3 more inches of window frame. So that's just going to be thicker because the glass is going to be a lot heavier than what is currently there, and it needs a lot more to support it.
Gotcha. Okay. And then just to confirm, the back door measurements are staying the same, right? It's just a
Yes.
replacement. There's no enlarging of the opening.
Yeah, there are no difference in the openings, front or back, in terms of opening brick structure.
You have a picture of the entire facility, or just the door?
Just the doorway in the current.
It's kind of an ugly yellow box. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's from the street.
Okay, thank you. I think that I can understand why you want to do what you're proposing, but it seems like that window, if you do it above the door, I don't have a problem with replacing the door.
Right.
Okay. And I don't have a problem with putting new windows on either side of the door without the mullions.
Right.
So the doors are solid. But to me, that is a huge piece of glass and is out of character with the house itself. You know, it's a much more modern way of doing things, and I imagine it might be less expensive, but the fact that you've got a facade that's got a whole bunch of windows with mullions, like I said, I think you can simplify the side lights on either side of the door, but the piece above the door, I'd rather see at least the simple form that you had there of two buttons.
Okay, so you think it would be better to still keep, okay. I mean, let me ask a question, because I mean, according to the people who are replacing the window, it is cheaper and easier to just do the one big window. Is there any reason I couldn't just do, you know, you could do essentially decorative, artificial, little, you know, vertical separations to place on the window, so from the street it'll look like it is three windows,
Yeah,
even though it's still just one.
I don't think I would have a problem with that. I think that would be.
I mean, there's
easy
got to
to
be a
do.
way I
Assume
can
you're
do
gonna
that.
Insulated glass, it's going to be insulated, so you can easily do that.
Yeah, I mean, it would just be something essentially, I suppose, it would just sort of stick on the
There
outside.
would be force, but probably can easily carry them inside if you, okay.
I don't
The
understand.
number, you can get a window made the size that you've got, and you can carry the mullions all the way through an insulated glass. And it's fairly common.
Well, I mean, this is going to add, if you're saying that I actually have to, I guess what I'm asking is, why can't it just be something which is purely superficial for appearance from the outside? Why do I have to carry it to the inside? I don't care on the inside. And we're talking, if I actually have to have three windows, we're going to add not just hundreds, but possibly thousands to my cost.
No.
I'm sorry. I think if you check with them, they could, it's going to be a custom window to size. They're going to make it up. Okay. And they're not going to make it, it's going to be insulated glass. You're not going to try and put that as a single pane of glass, right?
Yeah, they are putting it in as a single pane of glass. That's the whole point. Yeah,
So
it will be one big pane of glass at this point. That is what is.
it sounds like what you're suggesting is maybe a simulated light, to almost put in with fake mullions right on top.
Right.
Yeah, that's understood, just making sure we're on the
Yeah,
same page.
that's what I'm saying.
So one large window, but simulated.
Sure, that would mean from the street view, which I assume.
Right, of course.
It would be indistinguishable. I mean, you'd only know if you came up and.
Can we take another look at the before after?
Yes. So you mean like this and then seeing this? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yep.
But now imagine if I put the little things on it.
One thing, I mean, I'm not exactly sure how it works with non-contributing structures. So maybe you could provide some guidance there. But in terms of keeping in character with the rest of the neighborhood, one of the things I noticed in Maywood is that there are it's usually a combination of glass and paneling on the front door. And I don't see that here, and I understand it's not contributing, so maybe that's not.
Well, let me point
Okay.
out, my next door neighbor has a solid door,
All right.
completely solid door. And in fact, I think I sent a picture to you, Michael, of the light makes a little difference.
Right.
But this is my next door neighbor, and I asked him, and that's the original door
And
for him.
that's true, but you see, the paneling kind of breaks down that scale.
Yeah.
When we're looking at just the solid door, it almost kind of looks like it's a hollow interior door or a mechanical door that you put on the
Oh,
outside.
but I think there is going to be paneling on it.
Okay,
Yeah.
I missed that.
Okay, maybe
Perfect.
get to the sort of computer generated,
Okay,
yeah.
I see.
Yeah,
Okay, right.
that's what it's gonna look like.
There you go.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just that on the sketch,
Okay.
That makes sense.
yeah, because that doesn't show, but no, I understand that. And-
Okay.
And also, I want to point out in terms of fitting with the neighborhood as far as the glass, could you show the other photo that I sent to the neighbor around the corner? Okay, no, yeah, that, okay, so that house was initially my house. There are 20 of them in Arlington. The guy did 20 identical houses. And those folks, they got rid of the separations on the skylight windows. They raised the window quite a bit. And I don't know if the picture goes, but they have now almost like kind of a church window up top and it's back, and they put this, they did a whole heck of a lot of things. So that's literally around the block from me. And was another house identical, which made, I think, much more substantial renovations than I am contemplating. So I just wanted to point that out in terms of what's in the neighborhood.
In terms of character, if we go back to the image of your home, thank you for pointing out the paneling. That's helpful. I do agree with you, Andy. I think that there's something that big window does.
Yes, I also think that computer generated picture
It does-
makes that window look way bigger and more ostentatious than it
I
is.
think if there's an
It's-
opportunity to potentially explore breaking down that scale, so it almost suggests some of the divided light that you see in side lights that you see in the neighborhood. I think that could help with the proportions a little bit. I wouldn't want to take away from that large window. The interior photo you showed, I think it's a cool view. But maybe something to create a little bit more, extend that and break down the scale for the proportions.
Okay, I'm not quite sure what you're
So
asking.
Right.
so basically what the DRC is asking is that there's going to be a divide here and here.
But it could be merely aesthetic.
Surface applied.
Okay.
Yes,
Correct.
yeah, it's called simulated divided light.
Yeah, I'll divided light, okay, whatever.
Even though it's called a light.
Yeah, all right, I'll ask the contractor about that, whether they can do that, how much it would cost, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
Sure.
so
I
it
mean,
would,
I don't mind.
it would essentially mimic largely what you already have.
Yes, yes.
But it would break up the glass because what they're saying is that it feels too modern
Right,
to have just the solid pane of glass.
yeah. Okay.
Robert, I see that you joined virtually.
Yes.
Do you have any comments about the front entryway?
Yeah, I missed the beginning, but I would agree that it needs the the subdivision, and if it's not going to make any difference if it's done as a simulated divided light, and I would urge the applicant to do it on the inside and the outside because it'll just look better. You may not think you care about it, but I think you will once it's done. But I think it needs to be divided into the three lights, and it's not just because of the neighborhood. I think it just even a modernist building would extend those lines up because it just looks weird to have a big pane of glass above something that's divided below. It just really wants It just really wants those lines to continue up. And, you know, and I think given the non-contributing status of the house and the fact of its style, I don't think it will make, and also the fact that we allow simulated divided light, I don't think it'll make any difference if they just basically glue a piece of wood, to create those lines. Because it's definitely would be cheaper to put it in as one large pane with some simulated muttons or mullions. Actually, I guess they would be in this case. And they can do the same on the inside. And it's, I just think it's absolutely necessary. I mean, otherwise I think it looks really weird.
Okay.
In terms of the door material, I just when we're going from wood to steel, how does that sort of, I guess, precedent-wise sort of line up? I mean, I don't have a problem with it personally, but it's kind of.
Yeah, so I would need to do a little bit more digging, but what I have found preliminarily is that we've recently we have approved like fiberglass doors, we've approved aluminum clad doors. I wasn't able to find a steel door anywhere quite yet. So it could be precedent setting in that way that might be, if I can't find another steel door, it could be the first steel door that we have in Maywood on the front of this building. But I think that that's something the HALRB will have to take into consideration as to whether or not that would be appropriate for the neighborhood, and also thinking about houses non-contributing and all of those factors.
Let me also point out that I started, and I've been putting off replacing this entryway for at least 10 years. And frankly, I could see daylight through parts of that right now. And it's very bad in the winter. But I initially went to door companies because I knew that Maywood prefers wooden doors. And the door companies that do wooden doors said, we don't want this project. We won't touch it with a 10-foot pole because we do doors, we don't do windows. And we're not going to try to replace that door without replacing the window because it's going to break when we try to replace the door. Go to a window company. So I went to the window companies, Pella and Anderson, and both of them said, we don't do wooden doors. So, that's kind of.
So where are we with non-contributing structures with non-wooden doors? Windows.
Oh, I would have to look. Yeah, I would have to look into it.
It sounds like it's
not.
He's here, but
Yeah, is it going to be a wood frame that's around the window? Do you know?
I know that the mull in the middle was referred to yesterday as lumber, so I assume that's wood. And honestly, I have been emailing nonstop, trying to get an answer about whether the frame of the window is going to be wood, and didn't get back to me. So, I don't know. I'm hoping that it will be a wooden frame, probably, around the window and the door.
Okay.
But
then the door itself would be steel,
Right.
and that is largely because the company you've selected does not do wood.
yeah, this is the only kind of door that, I went to Renewal by Anderson, which seemed like, for a big window like this, I want to go to,
Sure.
as high caliber a window contractor as I can. And, I was given the same information by both Anderson and Pella as far as what kind of door they would provide. Both do the Provia. You have the product sheet, I think.
Well, I think there's still some answers that we need to obtain from your contractor, and let me just ask, how are the DRC feeling about a steel door on the house? And we haven't talked about the rear door at all either, so I just want to make sure we don't have any thoughts that we want to talk
I'll
on.
do my easy thought first. I think the steel in the rear, I personally think that's I mean, that.
Okay.
But on the front, I'm not sure. Sure.
Not sure if you're comfortable with it.
I think the fact that it's a non-contributing structure doesn't justify modernizing it as much as this appears. I really think that the objective there is to maintain a facade that's appropriate to the style of the house and the period in which it was built. And, you know, eliminating some mullions from the window. I don't have a problem with on the sidelights, but I certainly have a problem with that large expanse of glass. And if you're not getting insulated glass, then that's a huge mistake.
I'm sure it's
Because it's going
insulated
to-
glass. I'm sure
Okay,
it's-
if it's insulated glass,
Right.
then you can get them to put a vertical mullion on both sides that is not only on the front outside, but on the inside and even in between the two panes of glass. They'll simulate.
So,
And
and
they should be able to do that.
so are you saying that you're not comfortable with the steel door on the front as
I'm
well?
not, it looks kind of flat. I mean, I don't mind the pattern or whatever, but it really, it doesn't have the same aesthetic, if you will. It's
Sure.
not as deep. It just looks like a steel door.
So what do I do about the fact that the
So,
door companies won't do the work? Because they will not take on the liability of breaking the window.
I can appreciate that they're not wanting to do that, but it seems like you could find a contractor that could do both the doors and the window.
I have, the ones that do both doors and windows do not do wooden doors. That is what I have found. And as I said, I started this trying to find a contractor for this at least 6 years ago. And I got so frustrated that I've stopped. And then I finally decided after last winter, this is ridiculous. I've got to get this placed.
Mhm.
But I mean, I feel like you're telling me you can't replace your door because,
I didn't say that.
well, no, I know, but I can't get there from here. You see, I mean, if,
I think you can. I think you haven't gone to the right kind of contractor. If you will. And I can appreciate that the window manufacturer doesn't want to handle the doors if they're not perfect. You could get another contractor that could do both the doors and the window.
do you know who? Can you give me some contractors that
Why-
do both?
why don't, in the interest of time, because we do have 6 items on the agenda, why don't we, I can talk with you, Edith, after the meeting to maybe brainstorm some ways to move forward with other contractors potentially, and some other suggestions. But as it stands right now, we need to decide if it should move forward to the HALRB, and how we want to proceed with that.
I think before we move to the HLRB, I think it's appropriate to get a little bit more information about, I think one thing that kind of goes into this is, of course, the trim, which is definitely a part of this. I don't know if you have existing wood trim around that window, but whether or not that goes into this design. And I think if we could see it with the surface applied lens, I think if we already have a precedent of non-contributing structures not using wood, it's appropriate to expand that to potentially other materials, especially as the proportions and the paneling that we're seeing. It's a 2-dimensional render. I give it to you. It's a little cartoony.
Yeah.
Do seem to approximate what we're seeing on the same street, even a couple doors down. Would I prefer to do it differently? Absolutely. but it seems to be within the spirit of the thing if we had a little bit more information.
Okay, so just to recap, I need to find.
Hold on just 1 second, because Robert would like to say something. Robert?
Yeah, I'm not understanding why you can't find a wood door and side lights. That's a very standard design. I mean, I've seen it many times done in wood, off the shelf. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of companies that make that exact combination, a lot of them. And so I'm not understand. I guess I don't understand what the issue is with, that they won't, why won't they, the contractor doesn't want to do a wood door? Why was that again? What did that have to do with
It's
the
not
window?
what they do. The doors that they put in are the Provia doors. They don't do wooden doors. I
So
got exactly the same information from Pella when I went to them. And you're right. I mean, there shouldn't be certainly there are wooden doors, like the one I have. But
I'm pretty sure
think that
I've priced these
the
at just,
window's gonna break. I have to go to a window contractor. I can't go to a door guy.
So Robert, that's essentially what it is that the window at the top is kind of limiting what the applicant, what companies she can use, because door companies are uncomfortable with the presence of such a large window over top and have told her that they will not replace the door because they don't want to deal with the window.
okay. Well, it sounds like what's needed is a contractor, not like a contractor who can then, get the piece of glass made, and take responsibility for installing it, and then purchase this door combo from a door company. And there's a lot of them who make exactly this combination of a paneled door with side lights. I mean, I hope I'm not misspeaking, but I've got to think there's dozens of companies that make this in wood. And then the problem is having a door contractor that only does doors do this. This needs a contractor who's willing to do the two parts. Because yeah, I get that if you're a door company, you don't want to do the window above it. And if you're a window company that can just do that piece of glass, you may not deal indoors. So you need a contractor who can buy the two different pieces and put it together. It's not a complicated problem. I mean, I think that, and then at the same time, you can then coordinate having these applied muttons that will go on the glass, because that's a little bit of a specialty thing. It's not complicated. It's not difficult. They do it all the time, but it's also not something that that you're going to buy off the shelf. But I'm pretty sure that the door unit below with the side lights is a pretty standard unit that you can get from a number of different door companies. So it strikes me that what's needed is a contractor that will coordinate these two things. Clearly, if the door company doesn't want to be that contractor, then you need to find one that will. So what you need is a small contractor, I think, who's willing to do small jobs. And I know that's difficult. I think, trying to find people who want to do a small job is difficult, but that's what could get this done. So because I don't really see why, why this should be a steel door, personally. That's my position as the DRC members. You were asking Michael about that. So, and my suggestion is you need a general contractor to do this project. And I don't know if staff has any general contractors on file, that work in the Maywood area, that you could contact, but that would be the next move as far as I can see.
Yeah, I can certainly look into it. And then I think that the other suggestion I would make is to reach out to the Maywood listserv or the community civic association, because people do work on houses in Maywood all the time. So they might have somebody that has done a similar project or has done some of these smaller projects on houses that you could work with them potentially. But I think given Well, I would like to hear what the DRC thinks in terms of next steps. I don't know if you're going to have enough time, Edith, to look into all of this in time for the HALRB meeting. It's entirely possible. And if that is the case and you're able to confirm that you can get a wood door for the front and change the window up top in time for the HALRB meeting, it could theoretically come forward. But if you feel like that time frame isn't possible.
If I have to have a wooden door, I have to admit, I'm very surprised for this kind of a house that is being required. But I mean, the first thing I need to do is go back and get back my $11,000 plus deposit that I put down in Henderson and try to get the contract voided, which I can do if I'm taking this. Now, it may be that in order for me to void that contract, that I have to actually proceed to the HALRB and have them say no to me. In which case I would like to proceed and get the official no, because that will definitely enable me to void my contract. But I mean, what I'm getting here is no dice, start over.
I don't think it's start over. I think it's just that there needs to be material change to the front door. It seems like the back door everyone is very comfortable with, and that a simple change in the window pane. So I think moving forward, why don't, I'm offline tomorrow, but I can regroup with you and give you a call on Friday, and maybe we can talk about how to move forward. And maybe there's a chance that you could tell your contractor that you met with a subcommittee of the HALRB and that was the general consensus, is these changes needed to be made.
Right, in which they cannot make. I mean, you know, I know this. I really tried.
Yeah.
Can I ask one further question? And I'm sorry for taking up so much time, but is the homeowner's cost at all a consideration?
It is not.
It is not. Okay, well, good to know. I mean, I think the answer may be I'm just going to have to continue to have air coming through my doors. Because I honestly don't know that I can do this. I really have tried, and I'm amazed. But you know, it is what it is.
I will give you a call on Friday and we can try to think of a way forward.
Okay. And as I said, I may have to push it to the HALRB meeting just so I can get a formal official no
Okay.
to be able to void the contract. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you for joining us. All right. We'll move on to the next item, which is Sarah's item. So this one is at the Hermitage, and this would be for the installation of a new shed near the driveway. So actually, I think the next one's a little closer. But this is the house, and this is where the driveway is. So the shed would be located right along here. And we've got some photographs of what the shed would look like. So it's one of those, it's a prefabricated shed made of cedar. And it has a window on the front. These are the measurements for the shed. So it's not very deep.
I think there is a window. I think we got it's a sliding.
Oh, it's a sliding door. Okay. So this would be the location of it. That's the house. So looking at it from there. Oops, sorry, wrong direction. This is a view of the general area where it would be located from the driveway. And looking from the house behind towards the shed.
What sort of foundation is it? Is it, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to have a foundation as a shed, but this one looks like it's got some sort of foundation.
I think that's because it's saying it would otherwise be saying on grass.
But this one would be sitting on driveway. So that gravel, Sarah, or?
No, we got a special kind of driveway material so that water would perk through it.
Oh, okay.
So that's why that looks
I gotcha. Okay.
agreeable driveway.
Any questions, comments?
What's the size of the building? The
8 by 4.
Jeez. Yeah, so it's
Oh,
this, it's this
okay,
model
that-
here.
Gotcha.
Robert, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I mean, in terms of the, so is this isn't gonna need a foundation because of the construction of the driveway? Is that what I'm hearing?
I hadn't expected that it would. I mean, I haven't opened the shed kit yet. Whatever's on that sheet, I guess is what comes with it.
I mean, you know, if it needs something, I mean, it looks like what's in the picture is just, you know, like, paving stones, you know, just kind of laid on the ground just to get it a little bit off, you know, and you could always, I mean, I don't know that would be objectionable to just have some, you know, those paving stones that people have just to have something. So water doesn't run into it. I don't know, I'm fine with this.
I think I'm fine with it. I don't think
I don't have any.
Thanks.
All right, wonderful. So then it's safe to say that this can go on the consent agenda for the HALRB meeting? Okay, all right.
Yeah, but I think Robert's comment, you should look at getting that
Yeah.
knocked out a little bit, so
the board isn't kind of.
Otherwise you're
No,
gonna-
I'm with you. I need to
Yeah.
do that.
even if it's cedar, it's going
Let
to.
it come with something. If it doesn't, we'll figure it out.
So,
Yeah.
you could put someone flagstone.
House
Just
will
to
look
get-
much better without all the crap in front of it that would otherwise, you know.
All right, wonderful.
Thanks so
I'll
much.
follow up with an email.
Okay, and Michael, you are a star.
Oh.
It was,
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for your patience with our permit system. All right, so we'll move along to out of these two. All right. So next we have a sign at Buckingham and right. Harry.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay, perfect. Very nice to meet you. So Harry's representing the project, and this is a sign for a new business that's going into the commercial section of Buckingham. So this is the location of the shop. It is not currently occupied, so it hasn't had a sign up for some time now. And this is what it looks like. I think the rendering makes the OSM or the OSO look a lot wider than it actually would. So keep that in mind when looking at it. That's what it would look like. And then we have details of it here for the sizing of it. So staff's only thing to point out is that the sign measurements don't exactly match what the Buckingham signage guidelines stipulate that the sign should be. So there are a couple of things that staff would like to recommend be changed. One of them is that the sign itself should not go past the awning length over top. So it's just like very minorly past that on the side over here. So there are a couple measurement tweaks that that I can share with you in an email, Harry, if that works.
Okay.
Because I think the other one that I wrote down is that the maximum depth is about 4 inches, and I think this one's about 6 inches. So it's just a few minor things measurement wise that I noticed when looking at it.
So first of all, you're saying the sign has to be small, I mean, same or smaller than the awning width.
It has to basically just match the length of the awning. Yeah. So like when when you look at it over here, it goes flush to the wall over here, and it would just need to be shortened a little bit.
Okay.
But I can send you those specific measurements just so that you have it and can reference it from the guidelines.
Oh, you have the measurement?
I do, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I don't have them on me right now, but I can send them to
Alright.
you.
What about the size of the sign, both basically its depth? What's proposed is a considerably smaller sign. Most of the signs are like the dollar, whatever.
They're a little wider.
And I thought for the shopping center, we were using the larger format.
Yeah, so those are some of the changes that staff noticed too, that the size of the sign needed to be like just a little bit bigger. Yeah.
The height of a sign?
Right?
Yeah, exactly. I think I wrote down. Yeah, the face plates have to be about 20 inches high. So rather than listing out all of those things now, I can send it in an email, but you're correct, Andy. I think it needs to be a little bit bigger based off the guidelines.
If it's larger or taller and the font has to scale up as well, is there a guide for doing it in 2 lines? 'Cause it's gonna.
So the problem is, I don't have a problem with making signs small, same size as an awning, and make the sign same size as the next door.
Mhm.
But then I could do that, but the letters, they have so many letters, so I won't be able to make it bigger, make the font bigger, because if I make the font bigger, it will be spread out, and I'll have a space. So the font should be the same size.
I'm looking at the guidelines right now. Robert, I see that your hand is up.
No, I was just, I'm just mulling over like what you can do. I mean, in concept, I don't have any problem with this. I think it looks fine with the adjustments that you're talking about. But it is an interesting problem that, I mean, although if you look carefully at the fonts, the font on the one to the right seems to be a little bit taller. I'm not quite sure. As the font itself, the letters, it's like if you look at maybe not. No, I take that back. I think it's pretty close. So anyway, if you tried to make it taller, you wouldn't be able to get the letters in. So if you make the actual box bigger than the letters, there'd be more black on the top and the bottom, I guess is what I'm hearing. And I'm not sure that I have a huge problem with that. But I guess we should see it, just see it mocked up to the dimensions that you're talking about, Michael.
Actually, I'm seeing some older photos and cars look really old, so it looks similar to me. And there's quite a large variation in font size. I think that if you were to make it wider and maintain the font size, it wouldn't be inconsistent with what's been there previously.
We do, in looking at the guidelines right now, it does have a line item for 2-line lettering. So I think there is the possibility of having it be in 2 lines per the design guidelines. Yeah, it says that the copy not to exceed sign faceplate length less than 12 inches. And the height can't be less than 6 inches. So it does give guidance in terms of like where the placement of the lettering should be in the sign itself. But what I can do, Harry, is send this guideline link to you with the highlighted portions so that when you rework things to fit the new dimensions, you can follow this.
And redesign the drawing and send it to you.
And you can just send it to me, exactly. If he's able to do that, are you all comfortable with it going to the HALRB and being on the consent agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, great, perfect. So I will touch base with you in an email. I would need all those changes made by next Tuesday to the design.
And I want to make sure, I don't know, you noticed that this light here, right? This light, neon light,
Mhm.
is gonna be LED instead of, real, glass tubing neon. It look the same, but it will be LED. I don't know. I just wanna make sure.
That's reasonable. If it looks consistent, it's the requirement.
Yeah.
You won't have to change it.
2024.
Maybe update for neon.
Because, I mean, last time I sold the neon sign was 6 years ago. After that, I can't even find the guy who can make neon sign,
It costs a lot to maintain.
right? And also, it's also sometimes they cost fire and there's a lot of things, not good. So, yeah, we're gonna, it will look the same.
It's
Just
just reconfiguring the sizing a little bit, but it would all look the same.
Right?
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming, and I will follow up with an email, okay?
All right, thank you so much.
Me too.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So our fourth item is at the Mount Salvation Baptist Church Cemetery. And I know that Linda is on the line, but I'm going to go ahead and explain this one. It's relatively straightforward. So the trustees of the church, so the church itself is not in the LHD, it's just the cemetery behind the church. And they've had a couple of trees that have started dying and have been causing some basically imminent risk for surrounding buildings and things like that. And so per the design guidelines, they are allowed to remove trees that are posing a hazard and then receive a retroactive COA after the fact. So that's part of this application is that I think it was in February this year, they removed 2 trees along the back line back here. They were dead and the HOA nearby was really concerned about them. And then there is also the proposed removal of a tree right at the center of the cemetery. And that one, I had gone ahead and let them know that they can remove it, but as far as I'm aware, it has not been removed yet. So that one is still there, but that's part of the application. Yeah.
What about county forest? Does he check?
Yep. Melissa has checked all these trees. Yep. So those are the trees, and I've got photos of them. And then actually, we'll just look at the photos now. So this is the tree that is in the center. It has a lot of branches that are falling. It's dead essentially, but it is at the center. And then these are the 2 trees that were here, but they were also dead and have since been. The other part of the application is for signage that has been installed on the property. So again, this would be retroactive, but they did not obtain a COA before installing the signage, which is a requirement per the design guidelines. So it's just a pretty standard metal sign. They have 2 of them. Located on either side of the cemetery. So I went ahead and marked them here rudimentary so that you could just see where they are. But that's the signage location. So any questions, concerns?
You seem very reasonable.
Okay, Robert, any questions?
No, I don't have any problems with it. As long as in regard to the trees, as long as it's been, properly documented, I think that's fine. And I think the signs are fine.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, Melissa has been in close contact about all of these trees, and she's gone out and looked at all of them. And we've been offering some guidance on how to remove them safely because it is a cemetery. And so there's no stump removal. It's just letting the stump decay naturally. And I've been offering guidance on how to make sure you're not driving heavy machinery through a cemetery to remove the trees. So that's at least staff's biggest concern with tree removal in a cemetery. Okay, all right. So then, safe to say this one can go on the consent agenda.
Yes.
All right. Linda, if there's anything you'd like to add, you're more than welcome to, but essentially the DRC have placed this on the consent agenda for the Historical Affairs and Landmark Review Board meeting that's happening in 2 weeks. So I will follow up with you with either a phone call or an email.
Okay. No, I don't have anything else to add. Thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you.
Moving right along, there are many projects. Sure. Okay, next project is another one in Maywood. This one is for a few minor amendments to a project that you all probably remember from earlier this year. And I know that, John, you are virtually joining us, so please feel free to jump in if I miss something or if there's something you'd like to add. But I'll just go ahead and do a quick rundown of what the proposed changes are. So the applicant's working diligently towards all their permits and things like that, but they've had a couple things come up that they would like to change. All right, just a reminder, this is what the project looks like that was approved. And here's some of the changes. So, and I do have photos of what was approved, so we can go back to those and reference them if need be. But one of the changes is that there were 4 windows down here at the basement level. They are eliminating those. Those will no longer be there. But the bigger change on the back side is actually the deck. So originally they had proposed that it would be a very standard wood deck, very traditional for Maywood, but they are proposing that it change to have Trex for the flooring, and then to have cable for the slats and like the railing. So actually, I'm going to skip through some of this so you can see examples. Because the renderings you can only see but so much detail. So something like this is what they're proposing on the back. The other changes, they are asking to replace the windows in the original historic portion of the building. So it would be a replacement like for like, the measurements and everything would stay exactly the same. So those are all of them here, and they would mimic the same design, everything, and they would be all wood. And then they've also updated they've changed the window manufacturer for the windows in the addition, and those are all going to be wood, remain wood, but the sizing has changed a little bit. It's give or take a couple inches per window, kind of depends on what window size is in the addition. But that's another one of the changes that they're proposing as part of their design.
The only thing I'll add there, Michael, is
Ah.
I'm sure you're all familiar with it, but we originally spec'd Pella with wood, and they're unique in the window industry that they shrink everything by about ½ inch. So when the client decided to go with Marvin, so we do have Marvin all wood windows, and by switching manufacturers, all of our window sizes, of course, changed by about ½ inch on all dimensions.
Did I miss anything else, John?
Yep. No, I think that's it. We've got Trex, we've got railing, we've got window sizing, and the removal of the windows. That's it.
Okay, and then just to confirm, the like little deck area on the front side, that's not changing to cable, right? That's going to stay the original design.
Yep, all wood per the Maywood guidelines.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, on the rear elevation, That's actually, although it's the rear of the lot, it's not facing someone else, it's facing the public park.
Correct.
This is already, I mean, I don't have a problem with what we've approved. In fact, I think I commented favorably quite a bit of it. But it seems to me this is the cable railings are definitely a modern architectural feature, and they're really going to stand out. And they, I think Maywood has an obligation to maintain some semblance to a public park. My comment, I think that if you put the decks in, you see the deck and the handrails, actually guardrails at this point, and they really look like they're not proper height. I think you've got a fall hazard there, so you need probably a higher railing to comply with the code. But in any case, I think the cables are too much of a 1980s, 1990s on look. That's my opinion.
How do others feel about the railing, the deck, I should say?
I would kind of agree with Andy. I think, I mean, it bothers me too much, but it definitely is not the or the look of it. I mean, I know that it's a newer house, it's not contributing, but it is some semblance sort of what maybe should look like. It doesn't really reflect that, so I would not comfortable with that really either on this house.
Just to clarify, the original portion is contributing. This is just an addition. So I wanted to
So
make
this
sure.
is attached to the non-contributing portion,
No, it's an addition that is on a contributing house.
but the porch is not touching the contributing.
No, the porch is just, the back deck is just on the addition, correct, John?
Correct. Yeah. So, and that was part of our previous discussion and really the design iterations we went through previously, that the rear addition is the contemporary piece and standing out from the contributing portion. That was a pretty key factor in our design here. So the intent here isn't to go and be hyper contemporary in any means. Even the interior design, which has obviously nothing to do with this, is very historically conscious. There's a lot of the wood elements there. So the wood posts and the tension steel cable is intended to essentially remove the view while keeping the regular wood verticals. So it's really for interior transparency. From the exterior, there's no view from any neighbors. There's nothing else. It's just the land going up to the park. So it was sort of in the same vein of the intent of the original design, but gaining even more transparency here, which if you guys recall from our previous discussions, that's where we got those big picture windows along the staircase. So we're kind of keeping in the same design vein of the transparency here, but going with trying to meld the two with the vertical wood and the tension steel.
I think that the vertical wood, for at least for the railing, is a bit of a stretch. However, I do agree with you. I think the transparency is important because it's not touching a contributing structure. It's on the backside. It will go away. I think that's compelling enough, but
So you're a bit more comfortable.
I'm comfortable. If it were on the front, it would be a different story, but it's on the back, and I think the extension that we talked about previously was about preserving those views. It seems consistent with the design intent that we'd previously established.
Robert, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's not really even I mean, I understand the motive for doing this, but as far as I know, we've never approved anything like this in Maywood, even on the backs of structures or you know, on the additions, you know, I'm not talking about like directly on a historic piece, but on additions. As far as I know, we've never approved anything like this. And as far as I know, do the guidelines allow this to happen? I mean, for me, it's really more a question of whether the guidelines allow it or not. I mean, and because I don't, my understanding of the guidelines is that this would not be allowed by the guidelines, even
So-
on an addition to a contributing structure.
Yeah, I mean, the guidelines don't, they have direction on what railing should look like. That can be approved by the ACOA process, and that's largely where people get their railing guidelines from, is from that section of the guidelines. But there's nothing in the guidelines that say you cannot have a cable style railing or deck system in Maywood, at least explicitly. But you're right, Robert. I could not name an example off the top of my head right now where we have.
But aren't they required? Aren't they required to be wood? I mean, because this is obviously not wood. I mean, it's like I think that's where it you know, because we've in the past, like I believe the Trex is. I don't have a problem with that because number one, I think we've changed the guidelines to allow Trex, and we've approved it in the past because it doesn't look significantly different than than traditional wood flooring decking, but and I believe we've approved it in the past, but as far as I know, we've never approved a cable rail system like this. And the reason is I think is because the guidelines say the rails have to be, and like trim and other things have to be wood unless they are specifically called out. There are specific exceptions that we've approved in the guidelines, things like, wood trim in damp areas and so forth, where you're then allowed to use the PVC trim and so forth. So for me, I don't have an aesthetic problem with it on the back of the building like this. I mean, I understand I have a situation like this where I haven't gotten to the point where I want to use cables, but I understand the motive to keep the view open. I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing. I just don't know that we're allowed to do this by the guidelines, and because if like let's say we're saying, well, it's on the back, nobody will see it, then the next guy is going to come and say, well, you let him do it. I want to do it too. And then we go down this slope, which is why I think we should try to stick to the guidelines. And if the guidelines, for me, the thing is does the guidelines say that rails on additions to contributing structures have to be wood, which I think they do.
There's no guidance for decks.
Yeah,
in the design guidelines, and there's guidance for like railings when it comes to walkways that say that they can be composed of metal or wood, but I think that's a different situation than what this is.
Okay.
And I can't point to anything in the guidelines that say explicitly that decking materials have to be wood. It is obviously the preference because wood is more of a historic material. But as I'm understanding the guidelines right now, Robert, we don't have anything that says directly that something like this wouldn't necessarily be permissible explicitly. So I think that you are correct, though, that this would be untraditional for Maywood and potentially precedent setting.
Yeah, and my recommendation would be that if we're going to propose allowing this, and I'm saying I don't given its specific location, and orientation, that it's not visible, from the front, from the street, and so forth, then I think this would have to go on discussion, because I think the full board, this is not something that we can deal with on consent.
Okay, I agree with you, Robert, but I think you and I have both been on the DRC for some time. You much longer than me, actually. But we've never approved the cable.
Right. Yeah,
And,
that's what
and,
I'm saying.
You know, I think this is, instead of facing a neighbor to the rear in Maywood, this is facing a public park.
Well, yeah, that's a good point, Andy, because it's essentially, it is facing a public, it has a public exposure. You know, a park, you could argue that the park is no different than, say, a road where, anybody, walking by or driving by can see it. So I think that's a consideration as well.
Fair. Honestly, I see where you're coming from. I think looking at some of the Maywood design guidelines, all the places that rails are referred to, does seem to be encouraging the legitimate vertical, not tension system. In terms of preserving the view, because that is the intent, I think there are definitely other ways to do it that minimize the visual impact, whether it's just painting it black. I think that might be something worth exploring again, but definitely not the consent agenda.
No,
Yeah.
I think if you want to carry it forward, I think it has to go to the full.
Okay, well, Mari, you were gonna make.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. There was a case where we had a railing sort of go along the side of the building. It was very modern railing, and it was not on the public way. But I'll probably look it up myself, and I'm just sort of I'm just kind of talking to myself in a way. But it was a very modern sort of interpretation of a railing, and at the time I thought maybe it was a little bit too modern for me. We did approve it, so sort of maybe the devil's advocate here a little bit. We have approved railings or at least handrail systems that have been more sort of modern looking. They haven't always maybe faced the way, but I say like towards the back of the house, there is some, not precedence, but there is some sort of history of us approving things a bit more modern. But all that said, though, I think it should definitely go to discussion.
Amari, this is Robert. I think you're referring to the thing that Lab did.
Yes. Yeah.
And and I forget why we allowed that. There were aesthetic reasons, and but it was wood. It was a modern design, but I'm pretty sure it was wood, and so I think that was why we were approving a design that was perhaps unconventional, but we weren't changing the guidelines. We weren't, going outside of what is allowed by the guidelines, and so that's. I think if we're saying that there is any kind of interpretation that needs to be looked at in terms of doing something that's not explicitly allowed by the guidelines, then it's definitely a full board sort of a thing. So.
John, let me ask you. So, is this something that, would you all be willing to go back to your original design and maybe keep the treks, because it seems like that's not, the DRC doesn't take issue with the use of that material, but would you all want to bring it forward with the cable design, or would you be comfortable with reverting back to wood?
No, we'd prefer reverting to wood and moving forward with the windows and the treks, just to not hold up construction at this point. And if necessary, we'd come back just for the rails. I did look into the Maywood guidelines here. There isn't anything particular. The only portion here just states that railing should be of a simple design and constructed of metal and wood, which was obviously where our intent was. I understand the discussion point, so if that's something we can remove from the discussion in order to proceed with the window order in the construction process, that would definitely be preferable on our end.
Okay, so I think given the discussion we've had, you all didn't have any questions or comments about any other element of the design, right? With the removal of windows, the changing of window sizing, the replacement of the windows on the main historic house. Okay, all right. So, and Robert, just to confirm,
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine. Everything is, yeah, that's the only issue I had.
Okay, all
Out of
right.
curiosity though, why is the porch on 2 levels? See a door.
The
Is that-
garage elevation, that's from the original actually, but the garage elevation is off from the primary level, so it's to avoid the windows.
Okay, so then I think if you all wanted to move forward with the cable system, it would have to go on the discussion agenda. Because it sounds like you want to just move it forward and it could go on consent, if you were to revert back to the wood material, keep the trucks, then you all would be okay with it going on consent, correct?
Yep.
All right, all right. So John, if you're okay with that path forward, we can connect via email, and then maybe you can discuss with your team whether or not you want to come back again with the design for the cables. But I know that ordering the windows and all of that is kind of top of mind right now.
Yeah, that's definitely a priority. That sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And last but not least, we have another project in Maywood. Sitting back for you all, you've been waiting so patiently. Thank you so much. Unless you just like to come to commission meetings and hang out.
It's interesting.
All right, feel free to introduce yourself for everybody. Oops.
I'm Heidi Fitzharris of Fitzharris Designs. I've submitted numerous projects over the past maybe 20 years or so, but I have not been here in a while. So nice to meet everyone. If I haven't seen you before.
I'm Matt Schwartz. I'm the homeowner. So I'm an urban planner by trade, so I'm very interested in this process.
Welcome. All right. Well, I will do a very brief overview of what the project is, but it is a rear addition. And Heidi, please feel free to jump in at any point. But essentially, they're going to be removing the sunroom for here and then putting the addition in the back. It'll also have a screened porch and then a deck over on this side. The other part of the project is to replace the existing windows in the historic portion of the house as well. But they would be like for like wood, matching the same design, dimension, all of that. So yeah, if you all want to add anything, I'll just kind of scroll through the different drawings that we have. All existing. Sorry, someone's phone was ringing. Oh, and then the other thing to note, they will be removing a chimney in the house as well to make way for the addition. And I can come back to any of these. And the one thing to note, and actually it'll make more sense, this is all existing, but they have submitted.
Oh, can you go up for a
Yeah.
second? So if you see the side elevation here, that was actually an addition at a certain point because the foundation is different. So they have a trim board and everything is aligned. So I just want to highlight that that's the addition here is actually in line. The roof is aligned, and there's just a trim board that runs down.
Okay. Okay, so the other thing to note that they've submitted is basically two different roof designs. So one, and I believe it's the preference of you all, right? Okay, is to have it peek out just a little bit over top of the house. Now, I think we'll go to photos of the existing house. You may not be able to see it from the public row, but we can talk about that. So that's this design, and then we can scroll back. This is the measurements of all of the windows that they're replacing. But the door, the porch, all of everything else would stay the same. They are replacing the roofing, but that could be approved administratively. So, okay, so this is the design with the roof projecting just a little bit above. And then you've got the screen porch and the the deck entrance over here. This is the rear elevation. Okay, and this is the rear elevation with the roof flush with the existing. There it is, flush as well. Okay, so this is the house. This is what it would look like from the, or what it does look like from the public. Yeah, and you can see the foundation change here. Photos of the existing, and then these are just all of the window specs, and there's also some specs in here for some appliances, and they are putting their HVAC unit on the side of the house, but it will have proper code compliance screening with vegetation. So, but in terms of materials, it would be smooth hardy plank. We've got PVC trim that would comply with the Maywood guideline dimensions. Wood windows for all of the windows and wood doors as well. And let me see if I'm missing any other materials to note. And then the deck and screen and porch, that would all be pressure treated wood, right? Yeah. Okay.
Or do you want cable rail?
I'm going to scroll back up so you can see the design. Maybe we start by talking about the different roof options, because I think that's probably maybe the biggest discussion piece for tonight. Yeah.
I think I've usually advocated a lower roof for an addition than a higher one, but in reality, I think this works because you're never going to see that.
Right. The perspective is really hard to
Right,
see.
yeah. So, I mean, I think that would satisfy me in terms of showing a different elevation, that this is clearly something a little different. And I think that's fine. If you can't see it, well, you can't see it. So it really doesn't have any effect.
Would agree.
That seems very reasonable.
That-
All right.
Yeah.
Robert, do you have, yeah, we see your hand up.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the idea of you're not going to see it, and I think it's more important that the roof slope match the front, because otherwise I think it would be kind of weird. And having that flat, like runway on the top is potentially a maintenance problem. So I think you'd be much better off just raising the roof. Can I get a couple other comments in, because I'm gonna have to get out, but I overall I like this very much. The one question I have is so the siding is going to be hardy plank, smooth hardy plank.
Yeah.
With because what is the weather?
What is the weather?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that, Robert?
How much is from joint to joint?
Oh,
the exposure?
The lap, like the.
Lap.
so-
Yeah, what is the
It's 5 inches,
5
right?
inches, yeah.
And that's
and
my.
what is it on the existing house?
That I honestly didn't measure.
Okay.
Because my concern is that the concern is that on the forget which side it is, one of the side that it steps back from, the left side, it only steps back 8 inches, twice, which is good, but usually we would ask for a lot more than that, and I'm a little worried that this looks like it's actually very small, like maybe it's like 3 or 4 inches, because it's like a double lap, right?
Yeah, I think it's the German double lap, so it'd be 2.5
Yeah.
inches. So the total is 5 inches.
Right. So I just want to make sure that you know, that we can distinguish easily the addition from the existing, because there isn't a lot of step back, which I'm okay with, as long as, you know, as long as the the siding has enough to distinguish itself from the front siding. And I think if we're talking about, you know, like 2.5, 3 inches on the front versus 5, I think that's probably fine, especially since the shadow line on the existing siding is pretty heavy, and hardy plank is very shallow. So if that's the case, I think I'm okay with it. And I have another question, which is on the back. Why does the bay pop up a little bit above the you know, the eave line of the roof? That
Like right
seems,
here.
Yeah, that's to give it some interest and to break it up a little bit, and then also to get taller windows in the primary bedroom.
yeah, I mean, it seems to me to be more natural if the eave line just sort of went around at the same height, but I guess it, you know, it's on the back. I don't think it, and that doesn't bother me that much. So otherwise, I think, you know, I think it's pretty good. I think it's going to fit very nicely with the house in the front. I mean, if you look particularly at the photograph that's taken from the front at an angle, you know, from the left side, I think you can kind of imagine that stepping back. It's just, it's going to just take what is a relatively thin house right now and give it a little bit more bulk. And I think it may actually help it in a way. So yeah, I think I'm okay with this.
Great. Thank you so much, Robert.
I'm going to check out now if that's okay.
Yeah, appreciate you sticking with us for this long. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Any other like thoughts about anything that Robert brought up or questions about that?
Does the screen and porch, that sort of match our sort of standard?
Yeah.
I always kind of forget what it is.
No, I looked that up too because it's been kind of both, but basically with the screen and porch is the railing going to be on the outside of the screening. Okay, that matches what we typically ask for in Maywood. It's when we don't really like it on the inside because it hides the detail.
Okay.
So, yeah. And then, I had a question about the deck flooring on the back. That's all, like everything on the deck is wood, right? Just making sure. Any other questions about this project? Okay.
I think it should go on the consent.
Agreed. Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
All right, thank you so much.
That was. Thank you both. I'll follow up with an email that will hopefully go through. Email. I've been having email problems. So anyways, but I'll follow up with you all with information about the HALRB.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you both for staying with us so late. Really appreciate it. That's the end of our meeting.